Once again, on behalf of the Rotary Club of Mocksville, I want to invite you to enjoy a conversation with Glinnis McClamrock regarding his experience in World War II. And let's just go ahead and get right into the story. Tell us where you were at around 1940.
1940, I was in school.
Okay. Where were you in school at?
Mocksville.
So you were
High School.
Mocksville High School, and that was basically where the Brock Auditorium is.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you remember when Pearl Harbor was bombed?
Oh, absolutely.
Where were you at that day?
I was on streets in Mocksville carrying the mail.
Is that right? So what was Mocksville like among the citizens when they found out that Japan had bombed Pearl Harbor?
Oh, Law. It was devastating to hear tell of the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
So were you drafted or did you join the military?
I was drafted. Finished high school in '44, and they had a bus waiting down there at Wilkins Drug Store to carry me to Fort Bragg.
Is that right? I remember Wilkins Drug Store right there at the Four Oaks.
Right.
So you went to Fort Bragg, you went through military training there. Where did you go from Fort Bragg to where?
Went to Camp Gordon, Georgia. That's where I took my military training.
Mm-hmm.
We had 8 weeks of basic training, and then we had 8 weeks of advanced training for the invasion of Main Island, Japan.
Were you scared?
I guess I was young and didn't have sense enough to be scared.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how did you go, tell us which theater you were in. You were in the Pacific Theater.
Yes, sir.
So you went from Georgia. How did you get to the Pacific Theater?
Went to Oregon and took 2 weeks of amphibious training, and then from there to Washington State, and we sailed from Washington State.
Mm-hmm. Was it a bumpy ride?
It was. I could still see the tree line when I still see it. I'd done sick.
Was it a hot ship? I mean, the quarters that you lived in, was it?
It was an old Liberty ship, been converted into a troop ship. And they took a 2-inch pipe and welded in the holes. I can't remember if we were 7 deep or 9 deep, but we were stacked in them.
How was the food?
It wasn't very good the first 2 days. I was sick 2 days and a half for going out. But we hit the typhoon off of Okinawa in '45 then, and the old Liberty ship didn't have enough space to stack very much food, you know, and it was tied down on the back of the old ship. The crates of potatoes and cabbage and carrots and whatever, you know, like that. And the typhoon broke the ropes that was holding it, and we lost that. So we went from there to sea rations.
My goodness. I mean, how many days were you on that ship in transport?
We was 38 days going over. We went by Okinawa. I don't know why we went by Okinawa. And we went to Nagasaki, and we didn't unload at Nagasaki. And we pulled out of Nagasaki and come back to Yokohama and unloaded at Yokohama. Then we went down to a little town called Zushi, Japan, down in the southern part of Japan. We was the first occupation troops hit ashore.
So you went ashore after the bombing.
Yes, sir.
Where were you at when the bomb was dropped?
I really can't remember. I can't remember if I was on the way to Oregon and Washington, but anyway, I was still in the States when the bomb was dropped.
Okay. Was that an exciting time in America?
It was.
I've asked this question to all the veterans. I'll ask you the same question. Was it right for America to drop an atomic bomb on Japan?
Well, let me put it this way. It galls me for these here organizations every once in a while to come out and want the United States to apologize for dropping that bomb. It was not their blood that was going to turn that bay red. They estimated that there would be 80% casualties of first waves that tried to go ashore.
Well, I will tell you that you're just like every other veteran who has said, absolutely, it was the right thing to do.
I probably wouldn't have been here today if it hadn't have been for the atomic bomb. I've always believed that.
So when you went over, what was your responsibility? What was your job?
The ammunition that was loaded on the LSTs and the LCMs,
Now, what are those, so that somebody listening here?
they was landing crafts, you know,
Okay.
that the door went down.
Okay.
All that ammunition that was loaded on those ships, kind of ships, for the invasion, they just run them up to the beach and pushed all that ammunition out on the beach. And they worked us 24/7 for the first 3 months to get that ammunition back off of the beach and stacked and covered up.
So how long were you in Japan?
13 months, I believe it was, almost 13.
Was it anything like Davie County?
No.
What was different about Japan? You were a country boy from Davie County, and you probably hadn't been too far out of North Carolina.
I hadn't. As far as I know, I'd never been out of North Carolina until I went in service.
So what was it? What was it like to leave Davie County and all of a sudden, boom, be in Japan?
It was quite an experience. Their lifestyle and everything. Of course, their lifestyle was changing when I left there, but not drastically, because Japan had really took a bombing. They had really bombed Japan. Kamakura, Japan, it was down in the southern part of Japan, and it had all the big Buddhas and things that they worshipped, and there was not a bomb dropped there.
Really?
It was not scratched.
I'll tell
Now, I would love to have some pictures of the Buddhas, but they didn't want us to take a picture of them, and I respected and I never did take no pictures of them.
I just got through reading a book by Colonel Doolittle, his autobiography, and when he raided Japan, there was a group that wanted to bomb the Imperial Palace, and he said, "Don't touch it. We don't want to touch their religion, because it will enrage them and possibly cause the war to be even longer than it wound up being." Let me ask you this. Did you lose any friends during World War II?
I lost one in my company under the infiltration course in training. There was lost two in the battalion of the training cycle, and other than that, that's
So was training pretty tough?
It was. They claim we went through the most vigorous training cycle of the war.
Getting ready to invade Japan?
We trained with live ammunition. Everything the Army had, we trained with live ammunition. We was under live ammunition.
Did you enjoy your experience in the military?
Well, they wrote on my discharge, recommended for further military service, and didn't take me long to tell them I was headed home.
What was back at home? I mean, what was you? Did you have a job waiting for you?
No, I farmed a little bit a while with Daddy. Daddy had a few cows, and we was there on the farm, raised a little cotton and wheat and corn, and then Virginia Waters kept after me to take the civil service test, and I kept telling Virginia, I said, "Virginia, I've been out of school too long, I can't pass that thing. And she insisted, and I finally took it, and that's when I went into the Postal Service.
Well, that's interesting. You know, one of the neat things about a guy that was born in 1967, to talk to folks like you, is to see a lot of your uniforms, a lot of your photos, and you happen to bring your uniform today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the uniform?
Well, that's the 8th Army patch there. That the ones with the T there, yeah, that's the 8th Army patch. That's the that was my rank, T5. And the hash, I think they was 6, each one represented 6 months overseas.
So you were a year overseas.
Yes, sir.
And do you remember what these things are?
It's in the book over there in my discharge.
Okay, well, we'll look at that in just a second. And do you remember wearing this uniform?
Oh, yes.
Was it a hot uniform?
It was. Yes, sir, it was.
Now, we kind of joked about it. How old were you when you wore this uniform?
19.
19, because the first thing that I asked you whenever I saw you is, can you still wear it? And what I see about this uniform here is you were not a big youngin' at all, were you?
I weighed 121 pounds when I went in service.
You weighed 121 pounds.
121 pounds. I'm not sure where
This
it is.
This is your honorable discharge, Glinnis M. McClamrock. Now, is Glinnis a family name?
Glinnis. I don't know where Mama got that name, but when they had Reveille and they called Glinnis McClamrock, I was the only one that ever fell out. Never did run across another one.
Let's see. Asiatic Pacific Theater. Are you on? Asiatic Pacific Theater Service Medal, World War II Victory Medal, Occupational Medal of Japan. And I'm just looking here. It looks like the date of your departure was 17 October of 45. And I see your fingerprint there. When you received this dishonorable discharge, was that a happy day in your life?
Oh, yes. No doubt.
I appreciate very much you bringing your photo album. In fact, the first one that I got to confess to you that I noticed here was this old tractor. What kind of tractor was that?
John Deere.
John Deere, probably about a 1939 model.
I don't remember what model it was.
I see the flywheel on it here. But this looks like was that before you were overseas, or was this while you were overseas?
That was overseas, yeah. After we got the ammunition back off of the beach and stacked and covered up, well, I went to the motor pool, and there's where we hauled ammunition, received ammunition.
Now, is that a fish?
That's a whale that I drug out for the Japs with my old truck.
Is that right? That's interesting.
This year, that's an anti-aircraft gun that they had all up and down the beaches. And while we were stacking the ammunition and getting it covered up, the ordnance boys, their first order of business was to destroy these here guns. They had packed black powder in the barrels and destroy them and the instruments in.
Now, I see here some of your boys, me, Schneider, and Moss. Are those guys that you kept up with after the war?
No, I sure didn't. I had one from Payne that I kept up with for a while, and he had open heart surgery the last I had of him, and he used to send me a Christmas card every year, and we'd communicate a little bit, but I lost track of him. I don't know what happened to him. That's just old snapshots that I took overseas.
You know, I haven't seen too many of these. So you took your camera over there.
Yeah, they sent me a camera after I got over there. Mom and them did.
So you would receive mail, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Do you get this out very often? Do you go back and look at it?
Well, I hadn't had it out in a long time till we had the little get-together down at Dean's. And I started looking for my old pictures, and Sheila found this one in a drawer. And like I say, I've got some more of my basic training pictures, but I know they're in the old house somewhere. But we never could find them.
Let me ask you this. It's 2010. Today's April the, what is today?
4th, maybe.
April the 4th. Tomorrow's Easter. Do you think about your time in World War II on a regular basis? Is it memories that you just kind of keep stored in the back of your mind, or is it something that every day of your life you think about that experience that you had?
Well, it was something that I was proud to do for the country.
25 years from now, what would you want to tell someone about World War II? If somebody was asking you, just like we talked about earlier, there's some people who are revisionists who want to talk about the bomb being the wrong thing to do. What would you want to tell somebody 25 years from now about World War II and your experience?
Well, you know, war is hell anywhere you run into it. But I may be off base a little bit. I don't think we ought to have been where we are now. I really don't. But World War II, we had no option.
Was it, in all of your life, was it the scariest time in your life going into battle, the prospects of being shot at?
Well, you know, we was trained and indoctrinated. And we really didn't think about fear. We really didn't. With the training that we went through and everything, we knew we had a job that was going to have to be done, and somebody had to do it.
That's right. That's right. Well, I want to tell you, I enjoyed our time at Dino's a few weeks ago.
I did.
And I've enjoyed my time here today. And on behalf of my generation, I want to tell you how much I appreciate your generation's willingness to lay down your life, in essence, to fight and defend our country. And I've always felt like my generation is standing on the shoulders of some very fine men, of which you're one of.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out today. On behalf of the Rotary Club of Mocksville, thank you for listening to Glinnis McClamrock's story of his experience in World War II. And on behalf of myself, God bless America.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.